It is National Stress Month here in the UK in April, so we are dealing with stress this week. And one simple technique that you can be using to identify and potentially manage stress as well. Before I get into that though, stress can be incredibly complex. The root causes of stress can be incredibly complex, and actually kind of unpicking how you become less stressed can therefore be incredibly complex. So this video isn't about potentially resolving underlying stresses. And it may be that if you're really feeling overwhelmed, go and seek professional advice on this as well. It's not a bad thing to go and have to do to deal with those underlying stressful scenarios, okay? But if you can use this technique going forwards to assist with managing your stress, happy days, that is what it is here for. Just before I get into it though, I just want to kind of try to break down some of the complexities of stress, because it covers a huge range of things and concepts that people come up with, and just try to kind of break it down into one simple thing, because this is what we do with our clients, to say here is a simple way to understand it and actionable steps that you can take to deal with it. Because people, when they think about stress, very often think about that mental stress or a kind of environmental stress. Things are bad at work or in a family environment, or whatever's going on, but it's very much kind of up here and you feel a little bit overwhelmed by stress, okay? But stress comes in multiple different forms. When you exercise, as an example, you stress your body. And ultimately your body's response to any stress is broadly similar, okay? So you have, as an example, an increase in certain hormones, things like adrenaline, things like cortisol become elevated in the body. One way I think about that is that classic kind of fight or flight mechanism, is that if you're in a situation where you need to fight or flight, your body will naturally raise heart rate, raise adrenaline, start getting you ready to react. Okay, that's what kicks in when you exercise. It's short term, that's not necessarily a bad thing. But if that elevation of hormones, for example, is chronic, is low grade, and is there all the time, that is not a good scenario to be in. And that is essentially what is happening when you are stressed. So a real simple way to think about this is that you have something called a stress bucket. And that bucket is filling up all of the time with stress. And if you really want to think about it, it could just be adrenaline and cortisol, and those hormones are filling that bucket up, okay? And what happens when that bucket gets too full, it overflows, and it overflows in a catastrophic fashion. I'm not talking about a mental breakdown or, hauling off and punching somebody necessarily, but you will take actions that are uncontrolled, as it is when a bucket overflows, for example. Yeah. So you've got loads and loads of things that are constantly filling that bucket up. If it gets too full, it overflows. Okay. However, you also have a tap on that bucket, and it sits on the bottom of the bucket, and by turning that tap on, you obviously reduce the level of stress in the bucket. So you have things in your life that are causing you to become stressed, that are filling that stress bucket. And they could be anything from work situations to the fact that you've done some exercise, but at some point in time your bucket is going to get too full. So you need to be able to identify when you are getting to that stage, and you can usually identify that from those catastrophic behaviours, if you like. So it's about, going out and binge drinking away the weekend, or getting on the phone to your best mate and crying and sobbing down the phone to them because the world has gone horrifically wrong. Yeah. So catastrophic behaviours cause that bucket overflow. You need to turn the tap on. You need to empty that bucket somehow in a much more controlled fashion. Okay, now some of those health behaviours may not actually be great for you long term. So a classic example of that is getting in from work and you're massively stressed, and you have a glass of wine or two just to bring those stress levels down. Okay, that is emptying the bucket out, but over time is that gradually filling up the level of that bucket until it gets to the stage where actually you can't have a glass of wine because it just simply doesn't empty it far enough. Okay, so whatever behaviours you are taking to empty that stress bucket, just have a little bit of a think about those, and are they as valid as they could be? Well, hopefully that technique can be useful for you to identify when your stress bucket is getting too full, and what is filling that stress bucket up, and what actions you can take to empty that stress bucket in a controlled fashion.